Hello, everyone, and welcome to AACRAO's Credential Chats. We are really excited this week to be joined by Kelvin Bentley, Program Manager for Texas Credentials for the Future at the University of Texas System Office. Kelvin, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me.
And I hope I got the whole title right and the context right, but maybe you could just sort of kick us off by just giving us a little bit of context there for, what it is you're doing and how it's functioning at the system office where, you're serving, I believe, 9 campuses.
Yeah, so again, thank you for having me. So within our system, I work within the Office of Academic Affairs, and I support a project called Texas Credentials for the Future. It was an initiative that was started a couple years ago. It reflects the vision of our Chancellor, Chancellor Milliken, who was very interested in our system finding ways to help our students be much more successful in the world of work. As we all know, employers are kind of indicating that there are different skill gaps that are out there, and also, based on the data, we also know that students are also kind of expressing concerns around maybe not being as career ready as they would like. And so, our chancellor kind of started some internal conversations within our system, as well as reaching out to other stakeholders within our state to really kind of start looking at data too. We actually have some data that actually helps to inform some of our majors where we know median salaries are not where many students would like them to be. And so Texas Credentials for the Future is our way of trying to balance what we already offer, which is great education, durable skills, matched with technical skills. And so what we're trying to do is also give our students access to technical skills, and that combo platter we hope will help students be successful in the world of work. So my role is to work with our 9 academic universities. Our work is supported in part by the Strada Education Foundation's Beyond Completion Challenge grant, as well as a budget, monies that we actually received from our system to do all the things that we're trying to do, which is grow and scale access to industry recognized credentials for many of our students throughout the system.
You just gave us so much to unpack there, Calvin. As somebody who himself, I came up through the humanities. It definitely is an English major, Spanish major, answering questions at home of, what's going to be valuable about this. And luckily, I've come from a place of being able to connect the valuable, durable skills that were there in my education. But, I hear you saying that, this is really about doing that storytelling on behalf of the learners and giving them access to new learning and credentials that are actually going to kind of surface the skills that employers are looking for so that in addition to the degree that they're really valued in the marketplace. Before we get, I really want to unpack a little bit more about the data stuff you mentioned, but before we get into that, you mentioned something that I think a lot of folks in this community are going to be really piqued by, and that's that you had chancellor support from the beginning. You had funding support from the beginning, and if I'm not mistaken, it was seven-figure funding support from the beginning. And so I'm just curious if you can kind of share with our audience a little bit about maybe any of the pros and maybe even if there's friction points where you don't get to be as nimble and innovative as you might like because you started out with funding and a mandate.
No, thanks for that. I mean, I think some of I should basically say, first of all, I feel very fortunate to be in the role that I am because of that support. And I would say the support goes both ways, right? We have support from our chancellor, from our board of regents, from just many leaders within our system. But then I get a chance to work also with folks locally, faculty, staff who really believe in the work that we're trying to do. And of course, we're trying to collect as much data as well to really kind of help us understand, over time, we really want to find out, uh, this combination of durable skills with technical skills, do employers value that? How do students, what is the student experience like? And so we have lots of opportunities, I think, to kind of collect data. I think the challenge with anything new is that there is scrutiny, right? So people, of course, as Taylor Swift says, haters are going to hate. So I'm sure there are some people out there who are like, oh, you know, University of Texas, who do they think they are, in terms of doing this work, and it'll never work, right? There are a lot of people who, again, maybe not, they don't really see the potential of what we're trying to do. But I think really our day-to-day challenge is that it's big, right? It's 9 campuses, and the people that I work with also have full-time jobs, right? Working on industry recognized credentials and giving access to students. Everyone is busy. Students are busy again with their traditional coursework and work and life responsibilities. Folks that are also working with me on a regular basis to kind of support the work, they also are busy. So I think that's probably one of our bigger challenges. But my hope, I think the flip side of that is that students are, working through the program. They are earning micro-credentials from great partners like Google and others. And so I think there's really a good opportunity for us in terms of how we market and educate faculty and staff across our system about this work. There's a great opportunity to kind of connect the dots, right? To show the types of students who are earning these micro-credentials. And then over time, by leveraging data platforms like Stepping Blocks, we'll be able to also track students after they leave us, right? So to what extent are alumni who earn micro-credentials in addition to their traditional undergraduate degrees, what job outcomes do they have? What perceptions of their overall undergraduate experience do they have? And how does all of that compare with their counterparts who took a different path by not completing industry recognized credentials? And so I'm really excited about that potential because there's such a, as you know, there's a lack of data, I think, in this space in terms of really understanding the outcomes for students, both perceived as well as actual.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out of order then, I think, because of the opening you just created on that data. Do you mind just sharing some of those other maybe questions that you're asking at University of Texas System that you think might lead to, surfacing some insights? I think that sometimes it's a burden that we don't have, the systems in place to gather great data. And I think there's opportunity that because we don't have those systems in place, that we can ask kind of novel and new questions that we might, normally not be able to sneak in there.
No, that's a great point. I mean, I think through some of our survey data, I think we'll be able uh, to a certain level because we don't want to have surveys that are 100 questions long. But I do think that we want to be able to kind of ask students, what did you think about the micro-credential courses that you completed to get the micro-credential, let's say, from Google in data analytics? What was that experience like? How have you leveraged the knowledge from that micro-credential together with skills that you've earned in your courses in certain jobs that you've applied for, as well as jobs that you're in, right? Like, did that body of knowledge that you got outside of the traditional classroom, how did it help you? So I think we can kind of drill down to that. But of course, first things first, I'm working with some really great folks within our institutional research offices at the system level and also locally to create a Power BI dashboard to even kind of capture all the data. Because if you think about it, if you're leveraging, we have a great partnership with Coursera, but again, that data is in a system that's different from our SIS. Those things never touch. And so in a way, we're kind of creating this really interesting bit of art, I think, right? Which is, it's part data from Coursera in terms of enrollments and micro-credential earnings or micro-credentials that have been earned, along with our demographic data through our data warehouse, in addition to survey data where we can ask more we can get to qualitative data around the overall experience. I think there's also an opportunity eventually to maybe even with permission from our alums, talking with employers as well, so that they can help us understand, as an employer, do you value folks that come to you with micro-credentials? Do you value those from a UT institution versus the brand of the institution? Like, what's the weight you give one versus the other? So I think there's lots of opportunities to ask follow-up questions to understand this space a little bit better than we do, because again, there's lots of movement, students taking the courses, us tracking them over time, employers, what are their perceptions? And so it'll be great to kind of integrate that into a picture that will help us better understand the work that we're doing. Again, easier said than done, but I think that's kind of what we're hoping to do over time.
Yeah, there's just so much opportunity there that I think is very exciting, and I think that it'll be neat for you to be able to capture longitudinally, as things go from people not knowing what they don't know to people figuring it out, and seeing the dial move on how things are valued by earners, how things are valued by employers, and I also wonder if some of that survey also helps just push out information, that on one hand it's surveying them and at the same time it's socializing them.
Right, right, and I really do hope, again, that this work will inspire others. Many schools are, of course, trying to build out their own micro credentials. We have certain schools in our system too that are doing that. But my hope too is that we can look at the potentials of the industry recognized credentials as well, and seeing where that fits. A lot of our work is trying to find ways to embed micro-credentials in courses, but also we're noticing schools are finding co-curricular pathways for students too. And so I feel like, for us, we're trying to leverage different opportunities for our students, but again, where it fits for each of our campuses, and then based on how they would like to, help their students. So.
And we should try and remember to get everybody notes with a link to the report that you all did with WorkCred on the embedding credentials. That's some really great work that I am reminded of listening to you speak. And, in the last few minutes, something you touched on there is, like a lot of our large campuses and especially system-wide things, where you're in this interesting role of kind of providing centralized support in a system that I'm guessing, like a lot of us, is pretty decentralized. And so,
Right.
if you wouldn't mind just sharing, your perspective of what it's like to synthesize within that and where some of the opportunities have come up with that.
Yeah, well, again, I'm very lucky to work with project leads locally, and I would say the for us at the system level, we are trying to find ways to again talk with different constituent groups as well, which I think has really helped. It's really helped us all be more on a common page in terms of the importance of the work and how different groups really on the campuses need to be thinking about this, because we've even had, we're partnering also with the Council on Adult and Experiential Learning, CALE, to help with professional development workshops for faculty and staff who are interested in CPL, because micro-credentialing work will touch on that. And then we're also, of course, having conversations with IR directors about the types of data. So I think it's just, having an opportunity from my seat just to collaborate with folks. And I think I love the fact that this is a project that's not a mandate, really. It's really about how can we work with, how can we, make the outcomes of our students even better after they leave us, which I love that Strata has made this grant available to certain schools like ours to do that. And it's just great to have innovative thinkers on each of the campuses to help with a lot of the heavy lifting. So just really excited about the project.
Yeah, and that might kind of touch on just one final thing that I'd love for you to comment on in our closing moments here is just something that's been a huge topic of interest within the AACRAO community of innovative credentials is this notions around policy, governance, procedures. And so,
Yeah.
something I've heard you talk about is just how your work's been an entry point to kind of adjacent conversations, not just specific to the credentials for the future work. Do you mind touching on that?
Yes. Again, I would be remiss if I didn't also mention Lydia Riley, Chief of Staff for our office. She did an amazing job in terms of submitting our previous grants that allowed us to get to this point. And Lydia did a great job of, again, including language around, well, we need to have these bigger conversations. I think we learned a lot during phase one of our grant, where campuses also told us it's not just about giving access to Coursera seats, right? That it's bigger than that because we're bigger than that. And so um, it's just been great to really kind of start thinking about this in a systemic way. Like what other things do we need to be thinking about? And I think Lydia did an excellent job too in terms of also talking with folks in the ecosystem, like what helps you actually move this work forward. And so listening to others and doing research, I think we realized in order for this to be sustainable, obviously the faculty need to be a part of it. UT Austin, for example, has done a great work in terms of their governance structure around digital badging. UT Arlington, for example, is doing some great work around having a work group around the use of micro-credentials, and other campuses are doing that as well. So I think really over time, campuses are starting to realize that they do, in order for this to be successful longer term, we have to bring in different groups of people to think about policies and procedures in order to really help our students not just complete a micro-credential, but do it in ways that will actually help them hopefully in terms of graduation. Maybe it's stackable horizontally, vertically. I think campuses are having those conversations. And then also we're working with our partners to like stepping blocks to then collect data kind of after people leave us too, which I think will also help inform our policies and procedures too. So I think there'll be a feedback loop based on the data that we're collecting, which I think we just need to have that as well.
Wow. Kelvin Bentley, Program Manager, Texas Credentials for the Future. This has been just enlightening stuff. Thank you so much for taking the time to share this afternoon with the AACRAO community.
No, thank you. Anytime. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we will catch you on the next Credentials Chats.